Ooh, baby, you're listening to the Powell Movement.
Welcome to the Powell Movement. I'm your host, Mike Powell, and this week I have no long thought out or drawn out intro for you. This week we're going to talk about crushing Powell, because that's what I've had to look forward to the past few times I've headed up to the summit at Snoqualmie. It has been deep in the Northwest, and the snow, while heavier on some days, has been pretty light overall, which is a treat up here. This year, my ski crew consists of my brother, who's on a snowboard, and my great friend and old K2 coworker, Mike Goot. I really want to get Goot to come on the podcast, as he made such a big difference in the world of skiing while he was at K2, but he's one of those guys that will never do it, and he'll even be annoyed that I brought up his name on the intro. And the last most important member of my crew is my son, Keaton. And over the years, the heavy powder has been a challenge for him. But this past weekend, we got off the lift for our first run, everything was fresh, and we started hauling ass. I usually stay behind my kid, so if he crashes, I can pick up the pieces. But this was first run on a powder day, and I wanted it. As I'm hauling ass through shin, almost knee-deep powder, I look over to my left, and there's my 11-year-old, keeping up and shredding. What a proud dad moment. I mean, we are weekend warriors. We ski more than most, but we don't live at the resort. And like every parent who raises a kid who skis, we have put a shit ton of time and effort into getting him to learn to love skiing. And that takes a lot. I mean, sweating through the parking lot, carrying a bunch of different pairs of skis, sweating bullets just to try to get to your lesson, and then eventually skiing throughout the day. There's just so much that goes into getting your kid into the sport. So to hear him hooting and hollering when we got to the chair and talking about how good the snow felt, well, it made me feel like I'm doing something right. A dude who knows all about parental involvement and parents doing something right in their kids' lives is my guest this week, TJ Schiller. Not only were his parents super involved in his skiing growing up, but he also had one of the best heads of hair in his era of free skiing. He also had the tricks and style to make him one of the most dominant competitors of the 2000s. TJ was always a threat to win whatever event he was at, and he was true ski royalty. It was such a fun time in skiing when TJ was coming up and on top of the ski world, and he really was one of the kings. I'm not going to spoil the podcast for you, but I will ask you to follow me on Instagram at The Powell Movement, ask you to tell a friend about the podcast because it does help it grow, and ask you to subscribe wherever you listen. I also want to remind you to support my amazing sponsors who truly make this show happen. They are Peter Glenn Ski and Sports, Stanley, Glade Optics, the 10 Barrel Brewery, Alonskis, and Weed Maps. Now, it's time to talk to TJ Schiller.
Hey, good, thanks. How you doing?
Good. Man, your voice is so amazing.
Hey, right back at you. I hear a lot of it.
Well, thank you, but people must tell you that every time they talk to you is like, whoa, you've got a voice made for something.
You know what? Yeah, baritone came early. Came at a young age.
Well, it is amazing. It's going to sound really good on the podcast.
Sweet, dude.
And I don't know if today you had to work, but you had mentioned to me a couple days ago when we were figuring out this whole thing that we were going to do it after work one day. And for you, what does going to work even mean these days?
You know, going to work these days is very much like work back in the day. I'm on skis and I'm coaching. I'm actually in Aspen right now on the X Games course, getting my kid prepped up for the Aspen Open.
Oh, no way. How old's your kid?
I got not my child.
I was like, Jesus Christ, man. It hasn't been that long.
No. I'm coaching my athlete. I call it my kid. Troy Podmelsack, this badass little 16-year-old from Park City.
Yeah, I've heard of him for sure.
He's 16 and yeah, dude, like got a bit of phenom in him, works hard, and we're working. Back in my old stomping grounds.
Yeah, I mean, I would think it's pretty much like being a pro skier, but you don't have to perform. You just have to tell other people how to do it.
It's pretty much telling them what not to do, honestly.
Is it like your team manager too? Are you paying all the bills while you're on the road and managing the kids and just making sure they make the right decisions off the snow as well?
There's absolutely the parenting factor. You know, these are like young kids, and I've been with them for 3 years now, so I've been able to kind of mentor along the way and make sure that we're doing what I think is kind of the best way to do it. I learned a lot, obviously, like coming up, because we didn't have coaches on the day, so it was a lot of learning on your own or getting it from your TM. But yeah, dude, I'm cooking, I'm cleaning, I'm doing a bit of the babysitting, and then obviously just working our asses off on the resorts.
Well, it's amazing that you can go on all these trips and have no pressure on you, which you used to have pressure everywhere you went. But your life's also totally different than what it used to be before as well, because when you were a pro skier, everything was taken care of. Everybody was catering to you. And when you transition into being a regular civilian at the end of your ski career, and we'll talk about the end of the career later, but just the transition from going to pro skier dude to just being a guy who used to be a pro skier, is that a tough transition when it first happens?
Yeah. And you know what, pal? Like the whole time we were doing it, we always, like when we were skiing professionally and in the thick of it, that was always the question. It was like, what are you going to do after skiing? And I remember just telling people, like, honestly, I have no idea. Don't ask me that question. When it comes to that time, I'll figure something out. And to be honest, I wish I had kind of prepped myself a little more, because I walked out of the ski industry, or limped out of it, essentially with my master's in skiing and free skiing.
Yeah, I mean, you can say that now, but unfortunately you have the injuries that we'll talk about. But if you didn't, you might have gone for those 5 extra years that you were hurt. You might have been killing it just as hard, and it would have all been worth it. And then you would have to figure it out. It might have been a deeper hole when you came out of it and realized that you weren't a pro skier guy anymore. But I guess where I'm going is, when all your contracts run out in 2015 and that's it, there's no more free products, there's no more involvement really. How long does it take for you to find coaching, to find that I'm coming back to skiing?
Yeah, kind of when the downfall happened and all that, I wanted nothing to do with skiing. I wanted to ski for fun and rarely do that. I just wanted to golf and I wanted to figure out the next step. I was living in Vancouver, British Columbia, and I dabbled in school, took some business courses, took 5 courses all at once for a whole semester, dropped out of 2, passed them all, but was just what the hell am I trying to do with this? Going from traveling every day, skiing, making a good living, traveling with friends, living a very good life that I'd become very accustomed to then locking myself in school.
Sounds like a nightmare.
I jumped in it way too quick because I thought this is what normal people do. This is what mature people do. And this is what you do to succeed in life, to live a happy life. And yeah, it was not the path. And honestly, dude, I took off 2 years straight up. After the schooling, which was 6 months, I kicked back for a solid 2 years and just skied with my buddies, did a couple trips that weren't published or filmed or whatever. I golfed a ton, sold my place, moved on up to Squamish, British Columbia, kind of eased my life up a bit.
So you take those 2 years off and you have that pretty much to yourself. You're able to go skiing with your friends and do the things that you missed out on in life that we all experienced because we had regular lives. We weren't pro skiers like yourself. And coaching, how does it suck you back in? Because I would think you almost hate skiing at some point when you get done with it and every time you ski it hurts and your knees are all fucked up and you're probably not that stoked on the sport. So how do you get sucked back in to be a coach?
Yeah, there was a big frustration for sure. I mean, the boys up in Whistler during summer camp, we've been coaching, over 10 years, so I knew about coaching, but it was most of the time, it was very junior level skiers. We'd always be stoked when we can get the high level at momentum camps, because then we could just ride with them all day. It's kind of hey, follow me, I'll throw down, just copy me. And then we're pretty much just riding, sessioning together. So I'd always been coaching, but I got a call from a good friend of mine, Jeremy Cooper. This is during my 2-year break. They were starting this, what was called the next gen team, the next generation team for Canada. And this was kind of the B level, the feeder team to what would be the A team, the Olympic team.
Okay.
And I wasn't ready at that point. And I said, no, man, thank you for the offer, but, come back to me in some time. And, I'm just not in the place to jump back on skis.
And are you able to just live off of your ski money at this point? Life is good still?
Thank God I was smart with it, super thankful I had my parents kind of lead me in that direction and good friends, and gotten some real estate and just threw money into investments and just didn't touch it.
So those 2 years you didn't have to worry?
No. And I knew the whole time when I was skiing that the money will stop. So don't be a total idiot. This is your retirement savings. This is what's going to hold you on when this career's done. And hey, dumbass, you don't know what you're doing yet. So yeah, do not blow it. But yeah, he hit me back a year later, and it was actually for the same team, the next gen team, but as the secondary coach, just a contest. So I was going to be working alongside Gab, who's still the head team coach. And it was just on part-time, just for the winter. I think I went to 6 events, 4 of them World Cup, and it was super funny being back, and I kind of dug it.
At this point, is it like a full-time job? I mean, is it something that you're doing year-round? And like, how many hours a week does it take to be a coach?
No, it was fully part-time, just the contests. I wasn't going to any training camps with them.
Back then, I'm just thinking how it evolved.
Sorry, what do you mean?
Back then, when you started, you get in and you're just coaching at contests, and it's like the dream, I would think, just show up on game day and be there for that. But do you eventually get hired on to do more? Like you're with the kids a lot more than just contests?
No. So it did not evolve into a full-time job. But what happened is another friend of mine, Brad Prosser, who's a Kiwi dude. He was Nick Gepper's private coach for a long time. He's Eileen Goo's coach now, full-time. He had his own private team. They were all Americans, most of them based out of Park City. But he was moving on to take a job in China. This is like when China started dropping in and they were throwing around some crazy numbers. He was with these kids from their come up. And I know it was really hard for him to leave. And it meant a lot to me that he reached out and said, dude, can you take over my team? I'm trying to find a replacement. And I was traveling. I was somewhere in like Sri Lanka at the time, trying to learn how to surf. And I got this call and I was like, you know what? That sounds totally awesome. And that also means that I can like bring on my own kids that I can reach out to and find and start my own team. But it turned out that he threw me into something I was not ready for. That is for sure.
You might not have been ready in your head, but you've been through everything that all those guys are going to go through. So it's the perfect place for you to be. And then you have to figure out the nooks and crannies of being a coach. And we don't need to talk about coaching that much anymore. I wanted to have a nice little segue into talking about you come up, and we did a little bit there. We talked about coaching. And who's your horse right now?
My horse right now is Troy Podmelsack, 16-year-old kid, Park City. He's a K2 boy.
I know the name.
Yeah, he was the first one to do a triple. Sorry, not the first, but he was like 12 years old or 13 years old. And I remember seeing the video just being like, oh my God, what has happened to skiing? This kid is insane. He's a sender. And it's been funny. When I came in, it was taking a lot of steps back. He had all these crazy tricks. And I was like, dude, we've missed a lot of the building blocks here. So even this week, we're still working on like getting the cork fives right, like getting the small things that I think a lot of kids these days do miss out on because they see the big crazy shit on X Games, like Trip 18s, quad, whatever, 1980s. So when kids learn a 7, they're like, well, great. I got a cork 7. That means I can do a cork 10. So I'm going to do a cork 10 next run. It's like, good on them. They're crazy, but yeah, I got a little bit of old boy in me.
Yeah, and we're going to talk about how the old boy kind of came together because I'm guessing sport-wise, you were never like an average skier or an average anything. You were born to be an athlete. I think your dad was a pro hockey player. He might even played here in Seattle and a few other places. Was your mom an athlete too?
Mom was a ski coach.
So mom's a ski coach and dad, was he a pro hockey player?
Dad was the pro hockey player, yeah.
You have an older brother, and I think he's more into computer stuff than athletics, I guess, from what I was able to figure out. But growing up, were you always chasing him and trying to be like your older brother, like most little brothers did, or do you blaze your own path with skiing?
No, my whole family, there's 4 of us, there's 4 siblings, and completely different from each other. Brother was full-on tech, figured out the internet like back in friggin' 1986, like making his own programs and security systems for his rooms. And like, he's pretty genius. And then I got an older sister who's very creative, hands-on work, into construction and building things, and definitely a big caretaker. And then I got my little sister who's in gymnastics and stuff and skied a bit, was on the freestyle team. But, Tom, my old man, he put me into hockey and skiing. And that's all it was growing up.
And was hockey like really, really serious since that was his passion growing up?
Yeah, it was intense for sure. Like I started playing hockey when I was quite young. I was never that good, to be honest. And I never fully understood like how to work with the team, like pass the puck. And even though I had my father who could tell me everything, but it just never clicked. Skiing stuck out. Skiing was get out on the hill, do your own shit. That spoke to me.
And I think you have like 2 lives. Like you grow up a little bit in Vancouver and eventually you move to Vernon. How old are you when you move?
I moved to Vernon, I think I was 11 or 12.
So crazy time to move from Vancouver because you have a whole life that you like remember in Vancouver, and like hockey is probably pretty serious at the point when you leave. Do you pick right back up with hockey when you get to Vernon and then get in a ski program right away?
Yeah, my old man, he did a lot of work in the Okanagan out of Vernon. So he picked up with those families, and I was in a hockey team probably within a week since we landed. But thank God we had Silver Star Ski Resort 25 minutes away.
The whole Bibby family is like legendary at that place. Is Bibby the first kid your age that you meet there?
Honestly, from my memory, yes. It was Bob and Josh, Josh's father. We were put in the racing program. There was no junior kind of free ski, freestyle program. But when you're skiing with Bobo, Josh's dad, you weren't really racing. You were just ripping the mountain, trying to find little side booters. And what a way to grow up to learn how to ski, having fun like that.
Do you guys do that for a couple years before the freestyle program comes together?
I want to say it was one season on the Nancy Green program. And then Bob and a bunch of the other parents started Jumps and Bumps, which I believe Josh spoke about. And that was just for, young kids. And they were able to actually steal quite a few young skiers at the time and put them on this program. And I believe it evolved into like one of the biggest freestyle clubs today in Canada now.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at just the crew of kids that came up then, and it was like the parents were the mafia behind the scenes lobbying the resort to do this and do that, and our kids need this and kids need that. They're probably so annoyed with these parents want all this shit for their kids. But then if you look at the kids that came out of there, I mean, if there was a fantasy draft for skiing, I mean, I would pick you, then Dory, then Bibby, then Schuster, then Riley LeBeau. Who am I missing? There's so many more people from there, I would think.
Yeah, Noah Morrison, especially a good one. Elena Gaskell. We rolled deep, dude. And like you said, it was the parents that got out there, made it happen, got a good coach, got a good safe. Like, we learned how to jump on an aerial site. Like, you're probably familiar with steep ass landings. Parents would be out chopping the landing, and we'd have this shitty little booter on it on probably like a 25, 30-foot jump with the most terrifying landing. Death cookies everywhere, and we're learning how to land backwards on it. So something worked.
Is this area roped off for just your little team, and it's just like you guys lapping this jump over and over with your parents shoveling all day long?
Yeah, pretty much. It was roped off. You had to be in the freestyle club. Silver Star was brutal. You know, we had like one sort of cliff, the Attridge Cliff, on the entire mountain. And most of the time, this thing was roped off. You know, if you aired a roller anywhere, you'd get your pass pulled. And there was the snowboard park, which you weren't allowed in for quite a while. So this was our only option. Join the club, get a jump. But you had to ski moguls on Saturday to be able to hit the jump on Sunday.
So that's part of the game. And then you have that whole crew. We had mentioned a bunch of the names. And you're all at this air site. And is it just like almost daily progression sessions, for lack of better terms? Like, you figure out a 5 with a grab and you can explain it, and then everybody's kind of riffing off what you're doing. Does that happen regularly?
Yeah, we were definitely a team, even though it is, you know, like a solo sport. But yeah, we fed off each other. Absolutely. And we just tried to copy all the shit we saw in the movies. It was Bibby and I pretty much for a solid 4 years until the young guys grew up and started getting good. And then we all kind of collaborated together. But we were so lucky to have that crew growing up.
So was it like you and Bibby just watching videos and reading freeze and even getting on the internet and finding skiing on the internet at those early days?
Yeah, we found News Schoolers. I don't remember when we got on there. I mean, that was the only way that we could find what other shit was going on, right?
Yeah.
And then leaked movies would get on there. So we were living off that good. But no, we'd go like rent the movies from the ski shop and just burn through them, like Parental Advisory, Skiing's Last Stand, and 13. Those are the 3 movies that made the biggest change.
And then are you heading to like the air site without twin tips and trying to land backwards just because you're seeing this shit in the movies?
Yeah. I had like the junior Extremes, but they looked like the 1080s because the 1080s were too expensive. And they had like, you know, the little like rubber cap fake tail on them.
Yep.
And yeah, figured some shit out. And then the first twin tips, you'd like this, K2 Poachers, but they were waterlogged skis that were used at the water ramps at High North.
And that was like innovative ski because it came out before the 1080, but the tail on that thing, you could flex it and bend it into like a J.
Really? I don't remember.
Yeah, it was really, really terrible. I mean, it was game changing because of the shape, but yeah, they just didn't have the flex kind of figured out. I was hoping you might remember that.
No.
So you get a water ramp pair of skis, and were you going to like the glacier in the summer and seeing the whole new school revolution happen firsthand? I say that as I'm wearing a Freeze hoodie.
No, no, parents wouldn't send us over there. Lebo got to go. Lebo got to go a handful of summers. Baby and I were super jealous that we couldn't get up there.
Well, it's an expensive thing, right?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I know it's probably close to like 3K.
Yeah.
I don't know what it was back then, but no, didn't go there. We would later on down the road when we were like 14, 15, 16. We did do Red Deer, Alberta water ramps into the swamp.
Okay. Just like ear infections and trying to figure it out.
So yeah, totally fine. Totally fine.
Now it's time for a sponsor break, and my first sponsor is the 10 Barrel Brewery out of Bend, Oregon. They have been brewing the best beer in the Northwest since 2006, and they started as a bunch of friends who live beer, brewing, and drinking it outside. Over the years, they have grown, but they have never forgotten their roots in skiing, snowboarding, and biking. I could list the countless things they have done for the sports and athletes, or even better, list the things they've done for the causes like the Surfrider Foundation and Protect Our Winters, but I don't have enough time. What I do have time to do is ask you to pick up a 6-pack of 10 Barrel next time you're at the store. And if you are more of a booze person, 10 Barrel mixed drinks pack a punch. To find out more about all things 10 Barrel, head on over to 10barrel.com. Next up, it's Glade Optics, and I really want you to check out Glade. They are owned by a dude, Kurt, who lives in Breckenridge, and he has mortgaged his life to create this goggle line. And since 90% of goggle manufacturers are big corporate entities, Kurt is going up against some big marketing budgets. But with Glade, it's not about marketing. Sure, Backcountry Magazine and Friskier and Mountain Gazette, and I swear by the brand, but the reason Glade exists is to give you amazing goggle choices without having to pay $300. I've been rocking my MagFlight goggles for the past couple of months, and I love them. There's no easier lens to change, they don't fog, they look great, and they won't break the bank. And when you go to GladeOptics.com, use the code TPM10 at checkout, and I'll save you an additional 10%. My final sponsor in this break is Stanley, and they pretty much invented the category of containers that keep things hot and cold over 100 years ago. What was revolutionary back then is essential and more important than ever right now. This year, if you are going to do the mountain or any outdoor activity right, you're going to need to have soups, coffee, water, hot chocolate, whatever you possibly can in the car, in your pack, and most likely you don't have all the containers you're going to need to keep them hot or cold. Good thing is, I'm going to save you 30% on all Stanley products. To get the deal, head on over to stanley-pmi.com, go shopping, and enter the code DRINKFAST, that's all one word, all lowercase at checkout, and you will get that deal as well. Those are my sponsors for this round. Now let's jump back into the podcast. Mogul-wise, that's a big part of your career, and while it all evolves into the new school of skiing, who was better at skiing bumps? Was it you or Bibby?
Oh, shit. Bibby was 100 times smoother in the bumps, but I'll go ahead and claim I could probably get him on the jumps.
Who podiumed more? Was it you or him?
Dude, we swapped 1 and 2 all the time. Yeah, always back and forth.
And you say that it's an individual sport, so it's a really weird thing because like you travel the world with a bunch of dudes. You have Bibby, who's like your best friend forever, and you guys are all competing against each other. So on event day, while you probably want him to do good, you want to do better. I'm sure you do want to win. And when you guys are skiing moguls, you're going back and forth and trading off left and right. And that's all fine and dandy, I would think, because Josh is getting some wins too. Does it ever get frustrating, or do you ever get bummed for Josh when you go on your tear and you're winning all these events, podiuming them almost every weekend, and he's usually, sometimes he's in the final, sometimes he's not, but he's like got the tricks, but he just could never put it together in the contest run?
Dude, straight up. Bibby did. He had everything it took and like more, and definitely got screwed by the judges a handful of times. Obviously, I miss Bibby a lot because after some of my shit that put me on the map and got me traveling, all of a sudden, the first time in my life, I don't got my best buddy there, So it was, I miss Josh like majorly.
Yeah, I mean, because your careers were so parallel from your childhood, but yeah, you did have that kind of split. And grade 10 or 11, I think, is when you go to your first big contest, WSI, And I don't know how well you do at that contest, but it's got to be a crazy thing where the people that you're skiing with are people that you've seen in the movies and the magazines. Is it one of those things where you show up there and you're kind of starstruck and almost confused with credentialing and where you're able to go and everything?
Yeah, big time. And it was only half pipe that we could get into. And I mean, we didn't really have a half pipe. Yeah, we were pretty much just going balls to the wall, just trying to make shit happen. And Bibby was traveling quite a bit when he was 16, I want to say, and he got into some bigger events. So he was definitely the best pipe skier out of our whole crew. He ended up getting into finals, and that was big. That was big for all of us. But I remember seeing like Yoon there and Falou, and like Candide was there, and Tanner, obviously. And we're pretty much just like trying to follow these guys through the park every single day and copy all the shit they're doing, just like we do with watching their movie segments.
It's got to be just incredible for you guys at that point. That trip is also when you get hooked up with Armada. How does that all come together?
Oh my, that was the greatest shit ever.
Because that's your dream, right? Like you're chasing
Yeah.
Tanner around everywhere. Tanner's on Armada and they're brand new.
Yeah, Armada's like the forum coming up. And we're like pro team, and they got T Hall, JP, Kusam, Boyd. Like they got all the guys we love. So like that year when we went to WSI, Josh and I were in a film class in high school, and we'd have like buddies and like actual dads on dad camps filming like our contest stuff. And what we do in film class, they let us make our own sponsor me tapes.
I used to love getting those.
Dude, yeah, there's some pretty funny ones. I'm pretty sure I had like Wu-Tang, Protect Your Neck was my song. And it was a lot of like brutal fade in, fade outs, a shit ton of switch, cork 9 mute grabs, pretty much all mute grabs.
Mm-hmm.
And we rented a place through one of Bob Bibby's friends, and it turned out to be JP O'Clair's place that he was renting out for friends.
That's crazy.
Right over the fireplace, there's this photo of Douglas actually doing the most epic hunt me at sunset. And we couldn't read the writing on the picture, but it was definitely to JP from Mike, blah, 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 blah. And we're like, whoa, that is so badass. Anyways, I swear to God it wasn't intentional, but my tape was in his VCR.
And that's how they found you?
Like, we obviously were watching my sponsor me tape. And yeah, months later, like leading up to this summertime when I was 16, and this is my first time going up to the glacier, Anthony Bornowski, who I'd met here and there, he actually did like a couple freestyle events because he was ripping moguls and shit back in the day. He's like, yo, we want to get you hooked up with Armada. And I was like, wait, what? Huh? He's like, yeah, man, JP saw your promo tape and like was all fired up. And yeah, man, you're crushing it. And let's set something up. I'm like, wait, what? Like, how did JP O'Clair get my friggin' promo tape? Anyways, they told me, and I'm like, I don't know if it was all the weed we were smoking, but like, I definitely don't remember leaving that in there. And if I did do it, man, cheers to me. Smartest move I made.
I mean, I'm not a big God guy by any means. I believe there's something out there and I don't know what it is, but that's like a God moment there that like makes your career.
Yeah, it's absurd.
Not that it wouldn't have started elsewhere, but the brand that you dream of being on is going to reach out to you because you were an idiot when you were stoned and left your tape behind. That's amazing.
And it was year one. It was year one of Armada, and Tony was on the AM team.
That's just so incredible. Then the next year comes around, your senior year of high school, and that's like the breakout year for you when it comes to your skiing. I think it's like 2004. And what's the thought in your head at this point? Is it like, I've got Armada, I'm going to graduate early, then I'm going to move to Whistler or something, and I'm skiing, I'm going to travel, and I'm going to compete until I blow up in skiing? Is that kind of your thought process?
Yeah. Rule with mom and dad was, you can do this contest if you graduate high school. And like, we'll send you down to this one, but one and done, then you got to figure it out. So yeah, worked our asses off. Bibby had his driver's license. I guess we both did, but he had the car with the good snow tires. I mean, the snow tires were worth like twice as much as the car.
Right.
But he'd always drive us to Whistler, and we'd like try to crash with friends or sometimes crash in the car, and we'd get some good training in there. I believe we had a couple contests there too before the US Open happened. We spent a lot of time in Apex Mountain, like where Mark Getz is from.
Yep.
And our friend Josh Duick was coaching. We could stay at his place and just ski a shit ton and don't get hurt and keep learning new stuff.
So you guys do the accelerated, you graduate early or you take your exams early, you get on a plane, and the first steps to anybody's ski dream in the early 2000s is the US Open. It's in Vail. It's the event where anybody can pay the entrance fee and you can make a global name for yourself in a weekend. Like, is this an event that you've fallen asleep thinking about for a couple years?
We knew that that was the only opportunity. That was the best event to do by far at the time. WSI was great, but it was only half pipe, and we just weren't trained for pipe. So we knew we had to go to Vail. We had to do the Open. What we didn't know is that there was going to be like 300 kids competing, and we knew the best in the world would be there. Yeah, it was terrifying. It was absolutely terrifying showing up to that.
So is the day kind of just like a whirlwind of so many kids and so much going on that everything just kind of happens so fast, and next thing you know, you're like in the final rounds pretty much?
All I remember in training is Bibby and I kept seeing Dumont like cutting everybody off in the line and getting more laps. So we're like, dude, let's just follow Simon. But yeah, we just like try to get as many laps in and got a pretty dialed run in. And I think I won qualifiers or like second or something. And it was crazy.
And it's like you've had a ton of biggest days of your life, but this is the one that changes your life. You end up winning slopestyle at this event, which is the biggest event in all of skiing. I mean, I guess the X Games is out there, but
it was batshit crazy.
Yes.
And just it was unimaginable, honestly.
I mean, like, what are your emotions when you win? I mean, because you're young, so I don't think you're going to cry at that point, but who knows?
No, my face was plastered with a smile. And yeah, it was unimaginable, but it was obviously like the dream, you know, because I was a classic kid growing up, watching all the movies, posters all over my wall. It's all I ever wanted. And like the dream to win it was, it seemed like a slim chance. But once I got there, I knew there was a chance.
What's that phone call like when you call mom and dad and you're like, I won?
They've always been so incredibly supportive. And, you know, like mom was the reason that Bibby and I and all the kids behind us were able to do school online and get out early to be able to follow the ski path. And they tripped, man. They tripped out. And then I told them about the check I got. And then...
How much did you win that first event?
Dude, I don't remember. I want to say like 12, 15.
Okay. And that's American, so
US.
that's a lot for you guys, yeah.
Yeah, that's like tossing another little 30% on there.
Yeah.
But then, I mean, the slopestyle was for sure, it was insane. It was the most difficult contest I think to date I've ever done in my life, because going through that qualifying process and then the semifinals and then into finals, and I mean the course was beat. There was like moguls in the in run, the jumps were shit, the landings were shit. Like it was a horrible contest. But then the next night, man, big air, and it was like small field, nighttime, lights, music, action.
Into the village. That's the biggest crowd you've ever been in front of, right?
Yeah. And, you know, we'd watch like the Whistler Ski Festival Big Air show, and we were like, oh my God, it's the circus. And
yeah.
You're the star.
And that's what you're built for. I mean, when you look at a lot of your results, best trick, you know, or Big Air was your forte. And yeah, you did well in slopestyle as well. But it seemed like when you didn't have to put a full line together and you could just show your best trick, that's where you thrived.
Yeah. Pretty much take the rails out of the game and I'll probably do all right.
Okay. You get first and second in Big Air at that event, and then it's off to Europe. And do you go to Europe based off of you winning? It's like the Armada guys or the Poor Boys guys like, hey, we need you on this trip, or is it always planned?
No, it was actually through. So when I got Armada, I also got on a Raj outerwear through Felix, the photographer. Thank you. He got me on a Raj around the same time I got on Armada, because I'd sent, you know, that tape everywhere. And I won the contest, and like that day got a phone call from, oh gosh, I'm forgetting the team manager's name, one before Cody. And they're like, you want to come on a trip to France with JP Auclair, John Sims? Turpin wasn't there. I think he was injured. Anyways, yeah, that contest changed my life. 2 days and my life was completely up in the air.
So that day, or like the day after you get the phone call, so you're kind of like, hey, Bibby, I'm not going back to Canada with you. I'm going to Europe.
Yeah, off to France.
I don't know what happens on that trip, but I hear that you left the States as like shy TJ, who really was kind of like in his own little world. And then you came back like TJ, the ladies' man, a guy with game. What changes with you on that trip?
What? I've always been a ladies' man.
No, I heard you were definitely
Just
not.
kidding. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I'm sure I gained a ton of confidence from getting that victory there. But no, maybe a little bit of freedom. Literally first time away from home. I'm in Europe for the first time. TJ got a little taste of freedom.
And all it took was that little taste, and you ran with it. Then you come back home, you compete in WSI again. But this time you're like TJ Schiller, the dude with Mojo, sponsors. You're an up-and-coming Canadian kid. Do you feel a lot more pressure now that people are like watching you at these contests?
No, not at all. Those first 4 years, honestly, there was zero pressure. I was just zoned right in, having the time of my life doing what I only dreamt I would have been able to do. And being back in Whistler, a place that we knew so well, it was awesome. Such a big turning point for learning new shit and kind of getting my game to another level.
With pressure after those 4 years, then, does it kind of increase ever? Because, I just look at your results, and there was a period of from 2005 to 2010 where you competed in maybe 30 events that you could make money off of, and you're on the podium for maybe 22 of them. You won 13 of them. It was just dominant. And if you were American, you would be a household name, but you're Canadian, so you're still a pretty big name. Does the pressure get heavier on your shoulders as you get further into your career, or does it never really bother you?
I'd say the pressure, they came when the injuries came.
But you weren't expected to do well at that point, I feel like, because you were coming back from injuries. But from 2005 to 10, you never felt pressure in that run where you were unstoppable. It was just no, I'm here to win, and that's what I do.
No. Of course, there for sure are always pressures, whether it's trying to learn a new trick or even with the sponsors sometimes. With the Raj, we would do these trips, which were fantastic and fun. But I mean, you weren't skiing a lot of the time. You're doing poster signings and you're doing movie things. It was a lot of not skiing. It was a lot of marketing, right?
Yeah.
Live people marketing. And it was great because we got to travel and, I'm with JP O'Clair, an idol that I looked up to. I'm with all these people that I love being around, but we weren't getting a lot of skiing. And then it would be yo, you got a contest next week. And it's shit, I've been on tour for 2 weeks, not training. Those are definitely some big pressures, but you know what? You just get fired up and you go do your damn thing.
Yeah, I mean, I would think, like we said, Bibby had all the tricks. Everybody has all the tricks at that level. But have you been able to pinpoint what made you dominant in those years? Is it some mental switch that you had? When you're coaching kids today, are you able to figure out what you had going on in your head that made it so you weren't going to fail?
Well, you know what? There was a lot of failure. I didn't nail everything all the time. And there were screw-ups where, sometimes I wouldn't make finals or I wouldn't totally lace up. But I don't know. There is some sort of aspect to the mental side of my skiing where I had a lot of confidence to be able to find my moment.
I've talked to a ton of people who felt that their confidence level, it goes in phases. And when you're in 30 or so events, and I was kind of just counting them up, and on the podium for 22 of them and won 13, there's a shitload of people I've had on my podcast that haven't won one. That's a crazy amount of wins. So while you say there's a lot of failure, there's also way more success than almost any slopestyle skier of your time, I feel like.
It's funny, your numbers, because I actually didn't know about those.
I got them from your Wikipedia page. I was just counting.
There we go. Friggin' Wikipedia.
It looked like someone put some time in there.
Probably Fergie. Thank you, Fergie.
So another thing about skiing, we said it's an individual sport and you're competing against your friends. And while that might not make it awkward, on game day, are you guys talking about all the different things that you're going to do and the speed and everything that's going on with the course? Or are you keeping your cards to yourself and not telling even your best friends what's going to happen?
No, man. That was the greatest thing about our sport. I hate for it to sound corny as fuck, but we were all so tight and so fun. And I mean, there were some loose contests where we were doing things at the top we probably shouldn't be doing before you drop in to do a bunch of flips in corks. It was just the good old boys hanging out, having a time, shooting shit, and people cheering on each other. I'm sure there were beefs with certain people, but we were a clique. We had a crew. It was all time. It's a little different these days, to be totally honest.
Now it's time for another sponsor break, and Peter Glenn Ski and Sports is your source for ski, snowboard, wake, skate, and everything outdoors. And Peter Glenn is at it again with another giveaway that is a product I swear by. I'm wearing them right now, and I rock them every single day. I'm talking about 686's Everywhere and Anything pants. These are hands down the best fitting, best looking, and most functional pants on the market. With 4-way stretch fabric, they don't restrict any movement, and they both also have a ton of storage and pockets that carry everything you need. And Peter Glenn is going to give away 2 pairs to lucky winners. To get in on this one, first you're going to need to follow Peter Glenn Sports and 686 on Instagram. Second, you're going to need to like the 686 pant giveaway post. And third, tag 2 friends in the comments who would love the pants. The drawing is going to be held on Friday, March 12th, and you can find out more about Peter Glenn over at peterglenn.com. My final sponsor is Alonskis, and they have been building a cult following in the States for a few years now. Why? Because their skis are better than everyone else's. And believe me, I worked at a ski manufacturer for 16 years. I know what a quality product looks like when it comes out of the factory, and you aren't going to get any better quality than you're going to find with your Alonskis. And that's just the craftsmanship. They ski even better. They're rock solid underfoot at the highest of speeds, yet still lightweight, and there's no chatter at all. And in just a few months, I can feel my skiing getting better. And that's no joke. You will feel the same thing. To find out more about all things Alon, head on over to alonskis.com. Those are my sponsors. Now let's jump back into the podcast. How about in an event where, say, you and someone else finish 1 and 2, and it's obvious to all of you guys that whoever finished 2 should have won? Do you guys even talk about that, or is that like water under the bridge? You don't even think about it?
I don't remember. I don't know. I realized actually last year that I had never complained to the judges because like my kid was trying to get in finals and I had to do this where I had to go talk to the judges and like go over the run and compare it to another person's. And I'm like walking up there being like, I don't think I've ever done this. So you know what? I think I just got a lot of bonus points when I was coming up and I was just always happy with what I got.
And then in terms of athlete relationships and marketing of skiing in general, when someone like Simon wants to start a company, he does like Empire Attire, does he come to you and other pro guys and be like, hey, do you want to invest in my company and be a part of it?
No, not Simon for that. That was fully him. He was a 100% Empire. I think he might have reached out to Candide closer to the end to invest and become part owner. But no, I've never been approached to start anything, and I've never thought about starting anything.
Something that you did do, which is pretty interesting to me, and it's not really investing, but you could do that because you're pro, and you've had some amazing sponsors. But the one that I want to talk about in the podcast is the Corrupt ski brand.
Oh, let's go.
So you leave Armada in the late 2000s to work with them, and Armada's your dream brand. I mean, you're chasing Tanner around, and then a couple days later, you're offered skis from Armada, and you're probably the most stoked Grom out there, and eventually you become part of the Armada team. How in the hell do you even consider leaving Armada?
So brutal, dude. I know. And I want to say right away, like I'm still so close with the guys at Armada. Hans Smith, who's their president, and Chris O'Connell, who was like my mentor, obviously JP and like Bornowski. Like I kept my relationships well with them. But what happened is the first time I blew my knee was when my contract came up with Armada. I'd been doing very well. And I was offered just a 1-year contract coming back at like 3/4 less. And it was kind of
slap in the face.
It was tough. Yeah. It was really heavy, man. And my dad, who was a labor lawyer, so he worked with businesses and literally did contract law. So my dad was always helping me out, always going through them. He's a tough son of a bitch. He's a hockey player, you know?
Yep.
Dad was tough, man. And he was straight up. And the piece of advice that I got, not just from him, but from even other athletes, older athletes, were like, dude, your career, it's micro on the rest of your life. And don't forget, you got to make a buck while the getting is good. And that was heavy, man. Like I remember being in tears and like calling Hans and O'Connell and just being like, man, I'm sorry about my dad, like being a harsh negotiator, dude. And like, I love you guys, but this is just like this shit. And they offered so much money, and it was kind of like, we got to do it. And I wish I never did it. I'll tell you that.
It's easy to say you regret the decision now, but when you were offered the pay cut and then you see what Corrupt is doing, because can you name the team that they had? Because it was like the most star-studded ski team ever.
Oh my God, it was insane, dude. They called us up and they're like, we have Candide Thovax starting a new ski team, was pretty much how it was sold to us. And it's like, oh, you mean the greatest skier of all time.
Right.
And Candide was also known for jumping around. I mean, who hasn't he skied for, right?
Right.
You know, which we didn't know. We didn't know. We saw the money and, sorry, Go back to the team. Candide, Colby, Richard Perman, Gus, Kenworthy. Am I missing someone? Have you got this written down?
No, I don't have it written down. Was Henrik wasn't part of that, was he?
No, he definitely got offered though. Those are the killers though. That was the top team.
And it's like each of you guys are six-figure guys, I would think, for a brand like Corrupt. If you're going to sign with them, you're promised six figures and a pro model, I would think, in multiple years.
6-figure euros for multiple years.
Okay, so you're killing it being a Canadian.
Yeah, it was too good to be true.
Yeah, it really was an incredible thing. And one thing about you and the professional part is that you were really good at the money part. And I guess that's from your dad, who's a contract guy. But while I'm sure you have plenty of unused hair care products at home, when you had a ton of hair, you had Paul Mitchell as a sponsor. I'm sure it was dollars, not euros, but did you do pretty well from the non-endemic Paul Mitchell?
No, well, they were very Paul Mitchell has been part of action sports
Forever.
from what they told me, forever.
Yeah, man, they've always supported stuff.
Which I had no idea about because we didn't see it back home in Canada.
I never clown them because of that.
Yeah, dude, they've been fully supporting for a long time. They were not big contracts. It was more getting my face and name out there more, more advertisement, some TV time, commercial spots. I had ads in teen girl magazines and whatever. It was more just to pump my brand out.
So it's just creating unique opportunities, which you won't get in skiing, which is amazing.
And wait, you got to remember, they own Patron too. So you're getting little side benefits.
Oh, wow. That's pretty awesome. Another deal that happens later in your career that most people don't have is a signature ski boot. Did you crush it on that one? Just having a signature model on a product that everybody needs?
I don't think the boot did very well, unfortunately.
Oh.
I think it was out for 4 years based off the Ace of Spades mold. And funny story, man, still to this date, I'm still actually using my boots, but I couldn't find a boot that worked for my foot, honestly, for 10 years. I was in the SPK, the Solomon, their park boot.
Yep.
And I mean, you put it in out of the box, it's comfortable, but then you blow the shit out of it, a month later and you need a new pair. So once my friend Dory, he got on the Ace of Spades, ugly looking boot, horrible colorways, but I was open to trying anything. I put it on and it was the first boot in my life that worked. Yeah. And I'm still running them. They're beat to shit and I'm trying to clean them all up.
Well, I mean, I kind of put that on you because it's funny that you're a pro level skier. At that point, you're a pro skier and you haven't tried all the boots to figure out what fits your foot the best. You get marketed to and you go with Solomon's park boot because they've told you that it's the best boot to ski in when you haven't put your foot in every boot. But
no, that's right.
That's crazy. And now you're skiing on an old boot because you still haven't done that again to figure out what boot's going to fit your foot the best. I think you need to go to Peter Glenn Ski & Sports, but you probably don't have one near you, and get boot fitted and figure out what the best boot is for your foot. But that is me just throwing a sponsor in there.
I like that. I'll hit them up.
Yeah, we could talk about more sponsors. And the last one I guess I'll bring up is probably the biggest cash cow I would think is your energy drink sponsor. Was that the big one every year that you could rely on to support whatever you wanted to do? Was energy drink money pays the mortgage and then everything else can go into savings?
Monster was great. Yeah. They were very supportive, more so in the sense of the monthly paycheck, and a hell of a lot of fun, right? They'd be able to set us up, get us flights, get us hotels, and usually take care of us and make it fun, right? They were definitely a fun team to be on and awesome team managers that always had your back.
So I was saying earlier that you have all these sponsors because you were dominant and absolutely dominant in those years. Were there $500,000 years in Canadian?
Oh, God, pal, we're not going there.
Okay. I just want to throw it out there. I like to ask sometimes.
I know you do, you dirty dog.
Yeah, well, I mean, Troy wants to know. I mean, Troy's not going to be able to make close to what you made because right now the coaches probably make more than the skiers.
I'm seeing top level dudes not on clothing brands or not on eyewear brands. Shit, some guys are still paying buy one ski, get the other one free. And I'm times are changing.
It's totally crazy, yeah. But I mean, the top guys are always going to make money. And in the position that you were in back then, if you were in that now, you'd be making money and doing well. So you just have to get Troy on that level and he's going to be fine. Back then, you guys are traveling the world. It's a traveling group of dudes. I feel like you guys are led by Simon and you're living just a party life of booze, women, egos, alpha male, dumb shit. Was that you guys or is that me just imagining shit?
No, you're pretty on it. I look back on that and I'm like, it was pretty much part of a goddamn fraternity. We did party hard. There's no doubt about it, but we skied harder, way harder than we partied.
You guys were winning all the biggest events in the world, and then you were partying hard. I mean, if you were struggling in your competition life, then that would be one thing. People could question the partying. But I mean, if the crew is, it's what, like you, Simon, Peter, Colby, who else is in that group?
Yeah, Bibby, for sure. Yeah, that was pretty much the crew. And then like Luke, Tim Russell, Craig Coker. We had a lot of fun. Pete Olenek, Dumont, Bibby and I, and Luke. That was my favorite part of the crew for sure. Dominant.
And part of the deal was when you guys won contests, there was the 10% rule.
Oh, I love that you know that.
Yeah, I like talking about it too because the money was big back then. And if you think about it, what was the biggest tab that you ever had to pick up because you won a contest?
Oh, man. Funny. It's like we just drove through there because I drove in from Park City. Steamboat had the bumps and jumps, and it was $40K.
Jesus Christ.
And then Gravity Games, all right, I guess they're not doing anymore. That one was also $40K. Those were the two biggest. And I even think X Games back in the day was like 30-ish.
So yeah, there are some crazy bar tabs that are picked up. You're probably not going to share with me, but is there one experience or crazy night that just like stands out as the wildest of all from those 10% nights?
There was probably, you know what? Whistler. For sure, Whistler. It's always Whistler.
Yeah.
Yeah. Go to Sushi Village and just tabs open, boys, go nuts. And I think they had to use like all the Dumbos of sake for our crew and just full debauchery. I don't remember what happened, but I'm sure it was awesome.
Yeah. Now it is time for my Weed Maps question of the week, which I need to do and like to do. And you come from Vernon, BC in Canada, a land of potheads. Have you ever been to any illegal, crazy Canadian pot grows in your lifetime?
Come on, dude. We're from the country. Everyone was growing weed in their backyard.
Yeah. I mean, that's why I'm asking.
Yeah. I remember like Bibby and we had a friend whose dad grew weed, and Bibby would just like go over. He was closer friends with them and just, put your hand in the garbage bag and just, grab a handful. Yeah, free weed for everyone.
So weed was never a drug growing up in Canada?
Not really. I mean, trust me, the parents did not like it. We kept it pretty under wraps. I think if they were to notice it affecting our sport or school or whatever, I think the hammer would have come down harder. But, we had balance, I like to think. I mean, we totally didn't, but we freaking nailed it.
Yeah, you were able to pull the wool over their eyes and do your own thing?
I think so, yeah. Sorry, Mom and Dad.
Sorry to the parents, and now we're going to give your parents a few words from Weed Maps.
Weed Maps is exactly what it sounds like. It's simply the place to go online when it comes to finding what you need so you have absolutely nothing to worry about. The cannabis market can be a bit of a treasure hunt, but Weed Maps will get you straight to the source with no worries. Whether you're seeking out the best locations, deals, doctors, or strains, we offer online ordering and delivery where legal. No need to waste your precious time searching elsewhere. Go to weedmaps.com or download the free app today. It's your ultimate guide to cannabis. Weed Maps.
And now that we're back, we'll go to contests again, the X Games being the big one for you. They were your Olympics when you first started competing. And do you remember what was going through your head or just like the moment you got your first invite in 2005?
Yeah, Bibby and I got our invites, came down together, and we got in for pipe. Bibby was definitely crushing it in pipe. And I think we both got in for slopestyle too. In pipe, I crashed on my first hit straighter on the left wall, both runs. So very memorable.
Yeah, just like your first X Games experience, your first event, and you just crashed right away, first hit. It's like fumbling the kickoff.
Not embarrassing at all. Totally fine. Didn't bother me at all. And then slopestyle, so X Games is known, and it's so funny to be back here doing it right now. Their courses are just so goddamn tech, super quick. If you fumble once and you're off your edge or off your base, you're knuckling the jump.
Right.
You don't screw up at X Games courses. And dude, this is horrible. I don't really remember. I remember crashing in pipe, and then I remember kind of skiing like shit for slope. And it was pretty unmemorable.
Well, I think you make finals in both, which is a big deal, even though not memorable.
Did I actually?
Yeah, I think you did. You did not like high up in the finals by any means, but I think you made it. And I would think that just making the finals gets you on TV in front of millions of people. And that's when you start getting noticed in ski towns. Like kids are kind of like, oh, that's TJ Schiller. And that kind of changes for you. But maybe not because you can't even remember. But next.
Wait. Was it 05? Was it when slopestyle turned to best trick?
No, because that's the next year when you're able to come home and get some hardware, because that's really shitty weather. Like you said, there's supposed to be slopestyle. It turns into a best trick, and TJ Schiller is known for best trick. So you win X Games gold, and while you're stoked in that, would a true slopestyle gold medal mean more to you, or did it not matter at that point? You're X Games gold medalist. Who cares?
It kind of didn't matter because we had US Open the weekend before X Games, and I had just done my Switch 14 and like had the best night of my life on skis on a jump. Just learning and confidence was high. And yeah, when slopestyle, they did a vote with the athletes to turn it into a best trick. And I don't remember who told me, but they're like, well, congrats, Tej. And I was like, oh my God. If that's what they're thinking, man, then just be positive and just keep going. And yeah, it turned out, man. But obviously, yeah, I always call it my fake X Games medal.
Does it take you a year or so to think of it as your fake X Games medal? Because at first I would think you've won the X Games. That's all that matters.
No, trust me. The boys were giving me grief. Like the moment it happened, as the boys do, they're like, nice fake X Games medal.
That is amazing.
And I still had to do 10% rule.
You couldn't fake the 10% rule?
No, not even on a fake X Games medal.
Well, what can you do? So the next year you have a decent season, but I think you blow it at X Games. And then in 2008, you really blow it, like leading up to X Games, you hurt your knee. And what do you do to it?
Well, I think I blew my knee the next year. That was the first time. Yeah, I blew my right knee. Or no, it was early season. Yeah, 2007.
Yeah.
Right before X Games. We were training for X Games. We got up super early. Breckenridge hooked us up to like get up early and use the big line. And we'd had such a good day the day before, learned a new trick. And it was like fresh corduroy, no wind, sunny. And I just didn't do a warm-up lap. Knuckled, backseat, pop. And yeah, then that was the first road to recovery.
Yeah, you work your ass off for like 8 months and you get back on snow after surgery in New Zealand. And you have 3 months until X Games. And it's nice because you are given an alternate slot already. So you know that there's a chance of you getting in. And how does the knee feel when you first get back on snow?
The first time I was back on snow was 6 months in New Zealand. And it was super weak. I just signed with Corrupt and we were kind of doing some photos and marketing stuff. I just bombed turns and skied switch. Didn't even hit rails, didn't hit jumps. And that was for like 2.5, 3 weeks, just skied. And that was tough, man, because it's the first time I'd been knocked down and first time I had to climb back up. And it was also, there was not a lot of confidence, that's for sure. But coming back into the North American season, the knee was great. The knee was awesome.
So you're able to test it, it feels strong, and then you have a couple months to get ready for X Games. And is it strange going into an event like that as an alternate when you've medaled there, and is it the first time you feel like an underdog in a long time?
Yeah, for sure. It's funny. If you're like a first spot alternate at X Games, it's pretty much you're in. You already know you're in. The first alternates always get a spot in. So I just showed up and trained like I was in the contest. And I had kind of a unique run. I was doing two things different from the rest of the crew. And I knew that I definitely had a potential to end up doing very well.
I think you lay down your winning run on your first try, but I'm not sure.
Yeah, I did get it on first go.
So you win the pinnacle of what you do. I mean, the X Games gold slopestyle. Is it almost like a relief that you did it at this point? Like you've won your Super Bowl and you can check that off the list of your career things to do now?
Yeah, I guess so. Hey, I got my real X Games gold. There we go.
Yeah.
It felt good to come back. And like, honestly, I worked my ass off on that rehab. And, for the first time coming back, like it was great to show that, I'm sounding so goddamn corny, but that hard work really does pay off straight up.
Well, it gives you that false belief that hard work pays off because it did the first time, and we're going to talk about the other times after that. But yeah, it did work out for you that first X Games back. And I should mention, we haven't talked about this at all, but throughout your whole career, and to do your career justice, we're not even going to talk about it. I'm just going to bring it up here, but you film video parts every season, it seemed like, during the heyday of those careers, whether it was with Poor Boys Productions or Matchstick Productions. And is that kind of stuff that your dad would negotiate into your contracts? Or was that kind of just stuff that your sponsors wanted to make sure that they supported you with?
Dude, it all started with like Chris O'Connell, who was the photographer and part owner and team manager of Armada. He pretty much tossed me under his wing that first year in 2004, and it went all the way through the whole time I was on Armada and Araj. Dude, he pretty much just put me on the tour of like, here's what pro athletes do. We're going to go do contests. We're going to go do photo shoots. We're going to link up with these guys. I'm going to bring a filmer and we're just going to make shit happen. You ski. And I'm so forever grateful for that, right? He showed me the road, how to do it. And from there on, you're part of the program. You're in the system. So they just keep hollering at you and working with your sponsors. And you get to do these awesome, fun trips all around the world and get out of a contest, right?
Yeah, I mean, and it builds your brand too to the point where you're not just known as the contest guy. You have respect from all different angles of skiing, and you have pieces of ski media that will last forever, which is something you can't put a price on.
Yeah, no doubt.
Back to contest 2010, Ski Big Air. You get second to Bobby Brown. And while you may not know it, it's really like you're passing the torch, I feel like, to the new school of new school. Can you feel that at those X Games? Or is it just kind of like, who is this kid?
Oh, yeah. Watching Bobby that year, double gold, was insane. And didn't realize it at the time, but definitely should have hung it up on the contest right then and there.
It's hard to say that you want to hang it up right then and there because there's still a belief that there's a chance. And the Olympics are being talked about, and skiing is going to be in the Olympics. That's really, I think, where you want to try to make your last shot if you can. But here's where the podcast starts to get sad. I think it's the 11-12 season, but I don't know which season it is, but it's around then. It starts with disaster. You overshoot a jump. I think you had been sessioning it before. Is it the classic, like you take a break from sessioning it, the conditions change, and then you totally overshoot it later on?
Yep.
You do ACL meniscus and your tib fib like smashes each other so hard that it's like 3 months before you're even able to get ready for surgery. It's a total bummer, but part of skiing. And you rehab like a motherfucker, and is it like, hey, I'm going to come back stronger than ever, and I'm going to be in the Olympics?
Yeah, I mean, that was definitely the thought, right? Because after first time injuring my knee and going through the rehab experience and coming back that strong, I was like, dude, I've done it. I can do it again, and I can actually do it better because I know what to do.
Yeah.
And yeah, I had a flight booked. I was 9 months out of surgery because I realized the first time 6 months was too early. I had booked a trip down to Nike headquarters to visit up with them, to go through all the new outerwear, get some photos done, and rehash all the goals and everything for the upcoming season. And at the gym the day before I'm about to fly, and the knee just snaps and it's gone.
That's got to be just like the biggest punch to your stomach ever, because you're working out to get strong, to be able to put yourself in a position to hurt your knee again skiing, but you do it working out. And while it has to be crushing to your soul at that point, then you have to make the phone calls to all the brands. I mean, does everybody stand by you?
Yeah, surprisingly.
It's amazing.
Absolutely mind-blowing. And, you create these incredible friendships and relationships with all your team managers and these companies you work with. Because, I mean, you get down on some heavy emotions that are running wild all the time. You're winning, you're losing, you're breaking yourself, you're going through all these things. And when the sponsor believes in you like that, saying, no, we believe you can climb back up and get back on top of the horse, like, that's another added pressure too, because you're like, these people believe in me. Great. I believe in myself, but okay, now you got to put in the extra work and don't let them down.
So you've got that extra pressure on you. The Olympics are in the cards, and that's driving you to try to come back to the sport. And you're not done yet. You pay for some experimental procedure where I saw a picture of like you flew home pretty much the next day with just like a fresh zipper on your knee. Was it one of those like strip mall procedures that you research and they're like, this is going to change my life, I'm going to do it, even though not too many people do it? Is that kind of one of those deals?
Dude, it may as well have been. It was a guy on Nike, a BMX rider, who told me about it. And it was a guy that like David Hoffman used or something. And it's called the Lars ligament. And the easiest way to describe it, it's like synthetic fibers, almost like a Chinese finger trap. And then they used my quad tendon muscle to wrap it around it. And the whole idea is that you're able to get back on your feet in like 3-4 months. And this is all a test, so we can't guarantee anything. And it proved to be the worst idea I've ever done. I pretty much got an infection in my knee. The swelling was out of control because you have this foreign object in there. It didn't last a year. And yeah, be smart, take your time, take the long road is what I learned.
Did it ever feel normal, or from that point on was your knee like a totally different animal?
I was able to get back and ride. Like I definitely was able to keep sending, but I was dealing with a lot of knee issues day to day. And all that happened is it kept getting worse and worse. And eventually, it blew, and I just strapped on a knee brace and tried to tough through it. I ended up getting on the Canadian team, went to my first ever World Cup. No coaches. I was just in Europe skiing with like Elias Ambul and Benny Meyer, and we were like skiing POW, skiing park, having fun. And I was like, yep, I should probably try the contest. We show up and it's like the worst slopestyle course I'd ever seen. Like a mogul kicker to like 100-foot table that they built in the fog and sketchy rails. And I was just like, dude, what the hell am I doing here? Meanwhile, there's coaches. I look around. I don't know any of the kids. I'm like at my hotel trying to have a beer with like,
someone,
my competitors, and nobody's there. I'm like, what happened in 2 years? What the hell is going on? Like, something's a mess here. And that night, I think I did the Red Bull play streets. It was sketchy. I was just like, what am I doing here? This is stupid. I pretty much didn't do it. I like got dead last at it. Did a straight air on the hip, like 50-50 to box, was just like, you know what? Get me out of here. Get me to the casino. I need a beer and need to lose some money. Like, it was a sad part.
Is it one of those things where you ski and then it's like ice and booze and whatever you can do to make your knee not hurt, and then you can ski again, but you're going to be in for pain later on?
Yeah, it was that, and also just zero confidence.
Yeah, and I mean, I can see that with getting older, being injured, your knee blowing all the time. You don't have an ACL at that point. And do you even tell anybody at that point, or you're just like, I'm going to power through it and ski through it and then get it fixed again when I have time?
At that point, I think I still had the sketchy Lars ligament.
Okay.
But when I was in Europe, I was supposed to stick around for quite a while. And after that Red Bull play streets, I just made the call. And I was like, you know what? Fuck it. I'm going home. I had this SUV. I posted it online that night, got on my flight, arrived in the morning, had a message from a guy to buy my car. He bought it. I went and bought a truck that day and then called up Monster. They got me all lined up to get a deal on a snowmobile, and then called up Bibby. I said, dude, do you have a spare room in Whistler? I'm coming back, buddy. And then, yeah.
All the contracts run out around 2015. The one thing that we didn't talk about in the podcast before we get into inappropriate questions that I feel like we need some closure on is Corrupt. This brand that you leave Armada for, who pays you all this money, I don't think it lasts that long. And what happens to the brand? Do they just totally fuck over everybody who's involved?
Yep. I think Colby stuck it out and got fully paid out. Anyways, we knew it wasn't coming. Payments were getting delayed and delayed and delayed every single month, starting the second year. And then, payments just weren't coming. And I was like, okay, we're out. It's like, or I'm out. And my really good friend at the time, Fergie Kankade, he was my agent. And we're just like, dude, pull it, right? He's like, yep, it's a stupid brand. It's whack. Nobody likes it. You don't even like the skis. They don't pay you. Let's go.
And that's what happened to Corrupt. And now we are going to go somewhere. We're going to go to Josh Bibby and inappropriate questions. So when I interviewed Josh, I gave you the platform to ask him 3 inappropriate questions. He did ask one of the ones that you asked him. He asked about losing his hair because you used to have luscious locks that were just beautiful. And now, like Josh, he used to have long hair as well. The best friends both are bald now. And was that a tough pill to swallow when you realized that you were not going to have hair anymore?
Hey, pal, here's the thing. I still got hair. She's just real thin. I had to do like a pretty creative side swipe to get it to a decent look.
Okay. So it's just better to cut it off?
Yeah. I was with my now wife, and I remember she'd be like, stop wearing a hat. Like, we're going out. And then I just find myself like in the mirror, with like product and a fucking comb. And I'm like trying to cover it up. And I'm like, no, babe, right now. It's coming off. It's coming off and staying off. Just own it. Thanks, Paul Mitchell, for the memorable ads of me looking like a stud with great hair. All gone. It's just a faded memory.
That's amazing that you have those. Here is Josh's first inappropriate question.
Back when we were younger, how many hours a day when you were in your major gaming phase did you spend on World of Warcraft or whatever the hell it was called?
So you had a gaming phase. I did not know that. I would think that you and the crew that you traveled with, you guys would be non-gamers. And I don't know why I would assume that, but you were a gamer?
Oh, yeah. Bibby actually hated me for it. Because he'd come over and I'd try to play the game and he's like, this is the dumbest shit ever. What are we doing? Let's go get high and do something sweet. And it was not World of Warcraft. It was a game called EverQuest. And I think I was like 14 and maybe 15. And yeah, I had my gaming buddies and we were full on nerds and making like necromancers and fucking wizards. Like, yeah, I got deep there for years. Bibby pulled me out. Best friends of 4. Thanks, Josh.
All right. What did you think when they put gaming into the X Games?
Oh gosh. No. That was brutal. I love the Twitter debates though.
They were pretty interesting. Christy Lexington and those gamers do not like her.
Yeah. Christy and Trennan. Painter, the half pipe coach. They got into it deep, but man, like kind of scary. Like you don't screw around with tech nerds, especially on the internet, because they amass. They're a big army.
They will win.
Yeah.
All right. Question number 2.
If he remembers what his role was and what his lines were from Shabibler's used cars, yeah, I'll even rephrase that as well. What is Shabibler's?
Oh shit, dude, I got this somewhere. Bibby and I, our first ever like video segment was with this guy, Paul Cotton, and he filmed us on the glacier, and he was like a pretty, he was a wild dude, pretty crazy. And he wanted to like have us have a funny introduction to our segment because we had a shared segment. And I think we were like, we were lawyers, and Josh and I like filmed the scene where like I was pretending to drive a car, and then like I hit Josh, and then he's all screwed up on the ground, which is the best part because, as you know, Bibby, he gets pretty next level when he's acting and going over the top. And then it comes to me, and it's like, have you been royally screwed? Do you need to? I don't remember, but it's something like about getting royally screwed, and we're going to like unscrew you. Call Shabibler and Co. It was really fucking stupid. Good luck finding it on the internet. Probably won't.
All right. Well, I will look for it or ask you for it later if you have it. I think he's got more than 3 questions, but I'm not sure. I'm just going to hit play.
What's one thing or one main thing that your closest friends make fun of you the most for?
Yeah, I already know exactly what it is.
The beauty of it is that he didn't give me an answer. He was just like, I just want to hear what he thinks it is.
Oh, man. Yeah, I'll just do it for the boys. Okay, we were up in Whistler in the hot tub with a couple ladies, and the boys were in there. I definitely had a few too many cocktails, might have been slurring my words, and that confidence might have been through the damn roof. And I don't know how it came up, but I pretty much told this girl, I'm like, hey, I'm your guy for food and fitness. And my guy friends were sitting there being like, what the hell are you talking about? Did you just say you're the guy for food and fitness? You are food and fitness? And yeah, I said that and pretty much got laughed at all the way to today. That's what they call me.
All right. Well, that leads me into my next inappropriate question.
How many of these damn questions do you have for me, pal?
I don't know, but Josh, he just knows you so well. He wanted to come up with more.
Why was it called the Food and Fitness Challenge?
So he asked, why was it called the Food and Fitness Challenge? You already brought up the Food and Fitness Challenge because you wanted to throw it out there for the boys. So you've kind of already answered that. The reason was because you were in a hot tub and your game was so strong that you felt like you could throw at anything and it would work. Did it work?
Yeah. Pretty sure that one surprisingly somehow worked.
All right. Well, that's amazing. And that's the podcast.
Cool, man.
So I want to thank you for coming on and looking at your career, man. The early 2000s to like the late 2000s, you were the dude that just dominated in the slopestyle realm, and you did it like in an unassuming style where like you traveled with some rock star dudes. You weren't like the big personality that was like, look at me all the time, but you were always just right there having a good time and just being TJ Schiller. And I think that's the beauty of you Canadians is you never really need the spotlight. There isn't that much ego to you guys, but you're still able to kill it and be the best in the world. And I thank you for your time, man, and we're done.
Thanks so much, pal.
So that was time with TJ Schiller, and what a nice guy he is. I didn't get to know him too much when we were on the road traveling. Josh Bibby was his sidekick, and while I traveled with Josh, if we were at a place where TJ was, Bibby was going to be hanging out with TJ at his pad because TJ always had a better spread than what we had at K2. I guess that's what happens when you're always winning. And really, at the end of the day, I was everybody's friend, but they were paid to be with me. And if there were better options, like their best friend TJ Schiller was in town, they were going to take them, and Bibby always did. It's funny. I didn't think of it like that back then because team managers are looked at like they are pretty important. And they are to the up-and-coming athletes. But in the grand scheme of things, the team manager is the low man on the totem pole with the best job in the company, whatever company he's at. And I had no problem being that low man on the totem pole, and I rode that out forever until they forced me to take a job that had more responsibility. But this podcast isn't about me. It's about TJ Schiller. And while it looks like he lived an incredible life, I think to myself, would I want it? I mean, he didn't get rich skiing, although he did really well, and he had to deal with so much pain for so long. I'm sure he would do it all over again because skiing is what TJ knows how to do. For me, I'm not really sure. That's the podcast for this week. At this point, I want to thank you for listening, and I want to thank you for all the reviews that have been coming in. Now it's time for me to read the review of the week. It comes from W_ski_P, and it's titled Life-Changing - Seriously. And it's a 5-star review, and here's what he's got to say. Mike's podcast is awesome. Started listening 3 years ago as we trek our kids up and down to Winter Park for their competitive ski programs every weekend. I'll just input there that the kids probably shouldn't hear a lot of what I say because I do use some bad words and do create some weird situations. But either way, back to the email. Each of those early episodes were inspiring in so many ways. Olympic athletes, action sports celebs, industry leaders, and innovators, and of course Mike's own history in the industry and his direct and indirect connection to so many. It was listening to those podcasts that was a catalyst for my own career change and to dive headfirst into an effort to get back to work in the snow sports industry I left 22 years earlier. Although Mike and I never met, we shared some friends and leaders at Christie Sports between Vail and Steamboat back in the mid-90s. Listening to his podcast, stories from his career, and the people he interviews is multiple parts nostalgic, vicarious, educational, and totally inspirational all at once. That inspiration led me to a new career for a major outdoor apparel brand, a renewed enthusiasm for snow sports as a freestyle coach, and an awesome interview to tune into every weekend when we head up to the hills. Keep it up, Mike. Love the stories, personalities, the names, characters we share as friends and heroes. Cheers. John Holmans, Denver, Colorado. Well, that was an amazing email from John Holmans. I wish it was John Holmes. That would mean he was hung like a horse. But John, I don't really care how you're hung because I love that email. And please send me an email and I will send you a beanie. I really appreciate your email of the week. And it's a great one. It makes me feel good. And I'm glad I could help make a difference in your life. Because to tell you the truth, I'm really not looking to make a difference in anyone's life. And if I do, well, that's pretty cool. For everybody else, if you want a beanie, you can buy one on my website or you can submit a review. And if I read it online, I'll send you a beanie. And to review, it's so easy. Here's what you need to do. First, hit the podcast icon on your iPhone. Second, search for the Powell Movement. Third, click my logo. Fourth, scroll down to where you see the stars. Click however many stars you think I earn and write your review. And you're good to go. If you just want to give me a star rating, that's great. Although there's no chance for me to read your review in the podcast, which also means that there's no chance for you to win a free beanie. But whatever, I appreciate the stars. All these things help the show grow. It does do wonders for my self-confidence as well because I sit here in a little room recording this podcast and I don't hear from too many people outside of this little room. So when you submit a review and I read it and I realize that you really like what I'm doing, it makes me feel good about myself. And sometimes we all need to feel good about ourselves. So thank you for that. Finally, I need to thank my amazing sponsors who make this thing happen. They are Glade Optics, Alonskis, Stanley, Peter Glenn Ski and Sports, Weed Maps, and the 10 Barrel Brewery. Have a great week, everyone.